For the third lecture we've had on for the Heal the World series with Auburn Theological Seminary and the Dean's Lectures. And we're grateful for this conversation, which will be led by my colleague, Lisa Anderson. But before we get started, we always start with a little grounding practice and just a moment of reflection to bring us into the space. And I want to remind us of what our aim of the Heal the World series has been, or what we've been thinking about at Auburn Theological Seminary, and to tie our first conversation with Tommy Orange, who brought not just the wisdom of his writing and his novels, but one of the places we ended on with his lecture was he's the future library writer, which means he is writing a manuscript that won't be read for 100 years. He left a manuscript that'll be deposited in a library, held in trust for 100 years. And today we're going to be talking about Prince and spirituality. And for those who are unaware, when he passed, he has enough albums to be released, one every year for the next 100 years. So you talk about a gift, a generational gift of love and compassion and imagination for 100 years into the future. Prince has left us enough music, one album a year. I will never be that productive. I'm glad he was. And what a gift it would be to listen to his music and read Tommy's book 100 years from now. 5 generations from now. So if you can, we're going to ground ourselves. Just go ahead and get comfortable. Close those eyes. Remember to breathe. Take that deep breath in. Deep breath out. Another deep breath in. Deep breath out. Another deep breath in of your ancestors, the gift that you are, going back generations. And a long exhale of all the gifts you'll give for the generations to come. And as you hold this stillness before this conversation, I want you just to hold this question in your mind. If you could give a gift to this world that would not be experienced, would not be listened to, would not be read, would not be heard, felt, seen for 100 years, what would that gift be? Doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be material, but what is the gift you are leaving for future generations? Could be a book, could be an album, could just be the love that you pour into your family, friends, and community members, hoping that it trickles down for generations. But think of that 5 generation gift. And as you hold that gift in your mind, I want you to just think about what it is that you need right now. Not just to be present with us and those gathered for this conversation, but what do you need to sustain you, your work, your love, your effort, your joy, your compassion, your forgiveness, your pains, your sorrows, all the things that you need right now to be able to dream, to live into what it might require of you to leave a generational gift, a gift that may not be experienced for 100 years. What do you need right now? As you have this conversation today, just hold that generational gift in mind. Know that your needs may not be met on this call, but that Auburn is here to have that conversation, to dream with you what preparing you for that generational gift might be. Take that deep breath in, deep breath out. Come back to the room, and I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and Io for an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much, Patrick. So I'm Lisa Anderson, and I am the Director of Leadership at Auburn Seminary. And it is my great, great, great pleasure to welcome Ayo Yetunde here with us this evening for this great conversation we're going to have about this book, Dearly Beloved, Prince, Spirituality, and This Thing Called Life. So let me first start off by telling you a little bit about Ayo. She is a pastoral counselor, an educator, and founder of the Theology of Prince Project at United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. And in addition to Dearly Beloved, she is the author of Casting Indra's Net. And that's been named as one of the best spirituality books of 2023 by Spirituality and Practice, and co-editor of Black and Buddhist. That's the winner of the Nautilus Gold Book Award. Her work has been featured in Lion's Roar, Spirituality and Practice, and Spirituality and Health, among many other outlets. In 2022, Dr. Yetunde was named an Outstanding Woman in Buddhism by the International Women's Meditation Center Foundation. She lives in Chicago, and I don't have to tell you because you already know she loves Prince. And so I am just excited beyond belief to have you here for this conversation. I welcome.
Thank you.
So we're just going to jump right in
Oh,
with,
but weren't you going to say something about yourself?
oh,
More about yourself?
more about myself. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So I've been at Auburn for 21 years. And I went to seminary at Union Theological Seminary and studied feminist and womanist theology, queer theology, and theology is my call in life. Loving Blackness and Black life is my focal point around that. That's the lens through which I embrace all of humanity. And in particular, I care about the wellness and well being of Black women. And again, that's the lens through which I do all of my work. Not a coincidence that your title of your book is Dearly Beloved. My favorite book is Beloved. And so there is some interconnectedness around this theme of being beloved and belovedness that I'm sure will come out in this conversation.
Mm.
Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Okay, so why Prince, Io? And I want to know, want to share with people sort of what is it that first captured your imagination early on? Like, just give us the
Okay.
story of how you came and entered into this love of Prince as artist and
Mhm.
inspiration, just whatever.
Yeah, I'll just say, and I want to thank Auburn Seminary for hosting this conversation, and thank you all for being here.
Mhm,
Wow. So I was 17 when I first heard Prince's music. And at 17, I wasn't really paying attention to why I like things.
mhm.
Just knowing, I had a particular taste, and all I could say then was I liked it. I
Yeah.
liked dancing to it. I liked hearing it. I didn't always know what it meant. Most of the times, I didn't know. I did not know. Oh my God. And I grew up in the church, right? And the church had a particular message about how girls and women were supposed to be. And they
Mhm,
were not supposed to be the kind of women that Prince was singing about, maybe even singing to.
mhm,
Um, so at 17, I was also thinking about what other types of music I was listening to. In
mhm,
the car, we only had an AM radio. So I would listen to pop music, white pop music, Southern rock. At home, my mother played gospel. We listened to the R&B, soul, black station, and the Four Tops, the Temptations, um, and then you know Rufus and Shaka Khan,
mhm.
and then Prince. And there was just something about his musicality. I think there was also the understanding what was said about him was that he was playing every instrument. And I had
Yeah.
never heard that before.
Yes.
An artist playing every instrument.
Mhm,
How is that possible? And Yeah, all I can say is I liked it.
Yeah, yeah.
And if my mother had known what he was singing about, I would not have been able to listen to it at home.
I understand that. I completely understand that. I think we're of the same generation. We're probably listening to Prince at the same time.
Yeah, I was born in 61.
Yeah,
Hmm.
62. So
Yeah.
the same kind of we were all contemporaries.
Mm.
So I understand that listening, feeling like you shouldn't be, but then you can't turn away. Kind of
Right.
leads into the next question because in the early part of the book, so you refer to Prince's music as funk, rock, and gospel. And I imagine that most folks get the funk, most folks
Hmm.
get the rock designation, but using the word gospel in relation to Prince implies good news of some
Yes.
sort, of a spiritual quality, material quality. In what way is Prince a prophet of good news?
Hmm. Well, I think so. My understanding, being a prophet, you're saying something, you're communicating something about the potential for your future. Um, and since he believed that it was possible for human beings to live on earth in paradise forever, and the alternative to that was eternal damnation. Well, what would you choose? What would you choose?
Hmm.
So, given the choices in his belief system, he wanted his listeners to know that there was a path to everlasting life on earth in paradise.
Hmm.
And Jesus was the way. And I'm going to help you learn about Jesus. Uh, I may do that through enticing you, through songs about sex and sexuality, but that will be my method. And I will not, over time, I will not separate one from the other.
Mm, mm. That's really interesting. So the theme of like enticing and bringing people in is like critical to the understanding of
Oh, yeah.
his work as prophet. Did you
Right.
saw himself that way, like consciously?
People have said that at times he saw himself that way,
Mm-hmm.
that he had visions, that he heard messages, that he and his bands had a mission,
Mm-hmm.
and it was to bring people to God.
Mm-hmm.
When I was writing this book, I began to contemplate more on. Tell me, how did this Christian come to make all these references to the Kama Sutra? Um, and so, as I read the Kama Sutra and thought about Prince, how he portrayed himself, I thought, oh, okay. So he's using a sacred text from Hinduism
Mm-hmm.
to sort of model himself as the sexy prophet. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I am here to talk about pleasure and to give pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
but for the glory of God, not just for pleasure alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that intriguing, that mix of Christian evangelical thought mixed in with a little Kama Sutra, a little Hinduism. And then he became, over time, a more conservative and took the Bible more literally. He went from being an interpreter of the Gospels to basically someone who was articulating the word as it was written.
Okay, that's interesting because it makes me think when you're saying that he was already kind of was almost like a dualism happening where
Mhm.
he's taking a text like that's not a Christian text to bring people inside of a Christian message. Um, but he came from, say, can you say a little bit about the religious traditions that were
Mhm.
informing him, the Christian ones?
Mhm.
Because I see this kind of, you know, what is it, rule breaker inside of what you're talking about.
Right, absolutely right. So my understanding is that, and that's, I never met Prince. I never talked to him. I've read many books written about him, and so I don't claim to know what his innermost thoughts were.
Mhm.
This book is based on the lyrics and my understanding of the lyrics. So I understand that Prince grew up exposed to United Methodist and Seventh-day Adventist thought.
Mhm.
I grew up in the United Methodist Church. I don't recall there being much talk about this concept called the Great Controversy, which is what you find in Seventh-day Adventism. But still, the black and white, God or devil, good, bad, sin, goodness, those splits are still there regardless. And the Great Controversy, I think, is what inspired Prince's album Controversy,
Mhm.
as well as maybe the rest of his body of work. How are we supposed to deal with the conflict between good and evil? What is the role that we are supposed to play when this larger cosmic conflict between God and Satan is taking place? And so early in his career, it's like, well, I know what to do. Dance, music, sex, romance, right? That's it. Sexuality is all you ever need.
Mhm.
But over time, I could see in his lyrics that he was beginning to understand something about love,
Mhm.
right? So he goes from a teenager. He was a teenager when he started this career. Um, he goes from being the young buck, the sex object, and the objectification of women in his songs. And then he begins to feel love. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, now what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to keep this image? Do I keep singing these songs? Or do I begin to sing about love as I understand it? And you can begin to see his music change. And he becomes less objectified in his own mind, and he does less objectification of women. And then he
Mhm.
falls in love in real life and so on and so forth.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a perfect segue into the question I want to ask you about the structure of the book. So
Okay.
the first five chapters, they're almost like an exegesis, an analysis, a grappling with the opening lines of the song Let's Go Crazy, right? Like,
Mhm.
dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. And I like the way each chapter has a different piece of that verse in there. Why was this structure important to you in your quest to illuminate the theology
Mm.
in Prince's writing? Or,
Yeah.
like, to put another way, what is the theological work that Prince is doing with these iconic words?
Yeah, okay. All right. So, in response to your first question about structure,
Mhm.
the reason why I chuckled is because I'm all over the place. Lisa, I think all over the place. Uh, I construct things all over the place. And that's really my nature. I have a more of a gestalt way of thinking about things, the interconnectedness of things. But I know that people don't like to read that way. Structure is important. Linearity is important. Logic is important. Letting people know where you're going is important, even though I don't do that all the time. So I thought within just those few words, dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life was enough. That to me is the core of really humanity.
Mhm.
We need each other. We have each other. The question is, what are we going to do with each other? Because we are all going to die. Uh, there'll be many causes to our demise, and also we are all facing the same uh, uh, existential threat of climate catastrophe. So I also know that it's really important if we are to live life more abundantly, experience life with more joy and abundance, to hold ourselves as dear and to be
Mhm.
really convinced of that,
Mhm.
um, do us and our communities wonder if we
Mhm.
really come to believe that. And so that's why in the book I structured it that way and put pauses in it to ask people to reflect on their dearly belovedness.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, I got that from, it's funny you say it that way and it's clear, and it was clear when I was reading it, but there was this moment because there are practices throughout.
Yeah.
And when I read it the first time, I was thinking, what are these practices? what's happening in them? And by the end, I'm like, ding, ding, ding. Oh, this is a practice in beloving yourself,
Hmm.
of holding yourself accountable to being, to falling in love with yourself. Um, and so that really like resonated. But I had to read it twice to really like let that sink, let that wash over me, because that is actually completely countercultural to how we're
Yes,
told to deal in the world. Um,
right.
so did you answer me about the theological work you think that he's doing? Um,
I probably didn't because, I'm getting old and I can't hold two separate questions
no,
in
no,
my mind at
it's
once.
good.
So let's go back to that. Okay. Please ask me that question again.
So, like within that structure, I guess put
Okay.
another way, when Prince said, "Dearly beloved, we are
Mm-hmm.
gathered here today to get through this thing called life." Um, Maybe you did answer it. The theology implicit in that
Mm-hmm.
is,
Yeah, it's church. Is church is that our salvation is based in part on our gathering together in
mm,
worship,
mhm,
engaging in devotional practices. He is channeling the trope of the minister, the preacher,
mhm, mhm.
and yeah, and asking people to pray.
Yeah.
Yeah, to pray. And what's really interesting,
Mhm,
I was talking to somebody the other day about this. I said, he recites the Lord's Prayer. And people are like, he does?
mhm.
Yeah, and that song
Yes,
right
in that
there that you
song,
listen,
yes,
he's
in that
reciting
song.
the Lord's Prayer. I never noticed.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. And so, what was the stage then when he was performing? Was that pulpit?
Was that I have to say it is. It
Mhm,
was.
mhm,
Um, even even when they were pretending like they were performing oral sex on one another,
mhm.
it was still a pulpit experience. That if it wasn't, then what would explain why people are still so crazy about
Mhm.
Prince? They just
Ah,
go nuts over Prince,
mhm,
right? There
mhm,
is a electric experience that people have when I mention Prince. Like they'll say, "Oh, what did you teach at the seminary? What did you do at the seminary?" And I'll say, "Oh, I taught this, I taught that, I led this, and then we did this theology of Prince project." And they'll say, "Stop. You did what?
mhm,
The theology of Prince project? Huh?
mhm.
Oh, well, when's the book coming out?"
That's gonna make me now. That's making me. I'm jumping to this. I'm jumping to the question I was gonna ask later,
Okay.
right now, because it's leading right in there. So Prince is known for his eroticism. His
Yes.
music and his presentation are nothing if not embodied. So Prince
Hmm.
was sexy, and to
Yeah.
some, he embodied his sexuality in ways that contradict religion and specifically Christian conventions and morality. So
Hmm.
how do you respond to that? How do we respond to that as love and justice folk who
Hmm.
love Prince and are about not trying to make that reproduce the dualisms that say that we got to put this over here and Prince over there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess because that is a struggle a lot of people have had. They could accept one part of Prince, but not Prince in his wholeness.
Hmm.
Um, I think it might be helpful to consider how much we value freedom, free
Mm-hmm.
thought, free expression,
Hmm.
because Prince he argued and fought for freedom,
Hmm.
freedom from exploitation,
Yeah.
freedom from censorship,
Hmm.
freedom from categorization, especially being limited to what was considered Black music. It's like now
Hmm.
I do all kinds of music. So, and
Hmm.
as soon as you put me in a box, look for me in a different box, right?
Hmm.
Or look for me elsewhere. I'll be doing something different. So I think it doesn't serve us well to try to keep anybody in a place where they are not authentically meant to be.
Hmm.
And something tells me that maybe Prince came up against that early in his career.
Hmm.
I read that he opened for the Rolling Stones and he opened for the Rolling Stones. This was the Prince of the I Want to Be Your Lover. I Want to Be
Mhm.
Your Lover Prince, who had, the Farrah Fawcett hairstyle, the
Yes.
hoop, um, the wide open shirt,
Hmm.
and he would sing like this while flipping his hair. Now,
Hmm.
this was not an expression of Black masculinity then or even now,
Even now, yeah.
right? Even now. So I'm presuming that he appeared that way on stage with the Rolling Stones before the Rolling Stones audience, and they
Hmm.
booed and hissed him and threw things at him.
Hmm.
So what does that say? If I want to be successful in this business, do I keep appearing this way, or do I become more masculine in my presentation? And can I become more masculine in my presentation while also honoring the femininity that is part of me? And
Hmm.
I think he found that.
Yeah.
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 And people just whatever they didn't like about him, his brilliance, his genius was the forgiveness, right? Okay, I may not like the fact that your butt cheeks are hanging out, but damn, I mean, you sing and you play
Yes.
and you write like nobody else.
Hmm. And that just may be the opening that folk need, that I like your talk about freedom and what happens when someone is unapologetically free
Hmm.
in front of you. Oh, I want to say unapologetically free, but also probably from my reading of your text, none of it was not without his own internal struggles around these things.
Of course,
So he's not
because
making a presentation of I figured this out because you see this performance.
right.
Hmm.
But that was the kind of say the cool factor that he
Hmm.
projected onto to the rest of the world, like he had it all together, right?
Hmm.
And even when, his son died
Yeah.
and he was being interviewed, he portrayed like he had it all together.
Hmm.
And I think that was really important. I guess, audiences and fans can be quite cruel.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We don't want our artists to be that vulnerable,
Hmm.
right? Because then we'll move on to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and when you think about blackness, um, and what it means in Black cultures, traditions, this idea of the cool and what it means to present ourselves as cool, especially our men, um,
Hmm.
as a protection against the vulnerability that's actually under there. But it came out in the
Right.
music. So,
Yes, the loneliness. He sang about loneliness a
mm,
lot.
mhm,
Yeah.
mm, mm. So there is this section in the book where you talk about this notion of insecure introversion and
Hmm.
extravagant extroversion. So can you elaborate on what that means? And before you do, I want to give you some context around why I'm asking this question in relation to Prince's music. So at Auburn, we focus on leadership development that's healing centered. And so our mission is to identify and train leaders from the pulpit to the public square to build community and bridge divides, pursue justice, and heal the world. And I saw a connection between um, our love and justice centered mission and your explication of these ideas of of insecure introversion and extravagant extroversion in your book as it related to Prince. First of all, can you just tell us what you meant by those?
Mm.
And we'll just keep talking on it because
Okay. Okay.
those categories were phenomenal to
Mm.
me.
Thank you. Yeah. So Prince was known to be very, very shy. Um, but he was out there all the time performing. The concert schedule was just I got tired looking at it. So I can imagine that it really took a toll on him. The interviews, the work that needs to take place to sell your music or sell your art, the acting, the interactions that he had to have, and I can only sense that it really wore him down. So we're also in a time where people are using violence and threats of violence to frighten us and scare us into silence. And for some people, I've heard that it doesn't matter because I'm kind of, I'm an introvert anyway, and I'm just going to live my life here, and nobody's going to know what I'm doing, and I'm just going to keep quiet. And then I think about movements for change where we are being asked to come out of our comfort zone to express our demands for change. And that's really hard to do if you're an introvert deep down. So these concepts I'm talking about of introversion and extroversion have to do with contemplating the costs to staying silent, to remaining shy, which I'm innately shy, and pushing past that. I call it extraordinary extroversion. That is when you push past that part of yourself that says, stay safe, stay quiet, stay invisible. When you push past that in order to advocate for the well-being of others, that's what makes it extraordinary. And it doesn't mean that you become an extrovert. And it doesn't mean that you can't remain an introvert. It's just an invitation to say there's something greater out here trying to destroy all of us. And sticking to our personalities or our sense of our personalities is not going to help us in times where we all need to lead with love from the heart and create our own controversy for a better world.
Oh, that's great. And I mean, clearly Prince embodied that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, he was like pushing past.
In his way,
In his-
quiet, quiet, spoken, very few words, but very powerful musician and performer. That was his way.
So, so in the chapter on where you talk about, I'm sorry, I got it. I said extravagant. It's
It's okay.
extraordinary.
Extraordinary, yeah.
But
Thinking about Prince is no wonder you would say extravagant.
But in that part of the book, you included your a piece that you wrote called Sermon on Mount Wall Street in the book. And may I read it?
Please,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Because it's beautiful, and I'll form the question out of the reading. And so it clearly is going to be a play on the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. Okay. So it goes. Worthy are those who grieve, for their grief can be turned to wisdom and action. Worthy are the betrayed, for their betrayal is evidence of their faith in goodness. Worthy are those who hunger for recompense, for they thirst for justice. Worthy are those who forgive, for they are free. Worthy are the whistleblowers, for they are soldiers for the truth. Worthy are those whose calls for transparency were ignored for greed's sake, for the day will come when your calls are undeniable. Worthy are you when they minimize you, ostracize you, lie about you, and abandon you in their pursuit of justice. Take delight, worthy ones, for your rewards are beyond measure. I think of that, and it's a stunning piece. Um, and I wonder, what did Prince have to say about class and the relation to theology that inspired you to put this piece in the book?
Yeah. He had a lot to say about um, disrespecting others. He had a lot to sing about, and say, when I say, I mean sing, write, lyrically. Um, uh, Anti-Black hatred. He had a lot to say about justice and living in paradise forever. And living in paradise forever would mean treating people with respect. So when I think about the younger Prince, his band was multiracial and multigender as a way of expressing we can live together, we can work together, we can create art together, we can perform together, we can love one another. And he was very clear in his message from beginning to end on that. But as I began to think about each song and thinking about what are some of the underlying messages that maybe people don't know about Prince, I put together a list of songs just to illustrate his concern for class structure, class differences, and the elimination of class as work towards this paradise on earth. So I think it began with the song Controversy on the Controversy album. So you've got Controversy in 1981. So he was like the Dirty Mind Prince before that, right? And then Controversy in 1981. And then in 1982, he's got songs Sexuality and Anti-Christian. And in Sexuality, he's saying we need a new breed leader, stand up, organize. Like, oh, okay. For your leadership work, that might be a good theme song. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. In 1982, 1999. So a lot of people know the song 1999, right? It's still being played all over the place, but they don't know that that song is about get prepared, y'all. The world is ending, and you need to decide if you want to burn in hell for the rest of your life on one side or live in paradise forever. It's up to you. That's 1999. So, and then 1985, I think he becomes much more explicit about his social analysis. So he's got, the song America, 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 God shed his grace on thee, set the people free. And then Pop Life. In 2009, he's got a song. I think a lot of people don't know this song because the title of the song does not include any letters. So there's no word. It's just a $sign. And it's like, okay, basically everything you need to know about what is evil in the United States comes down to this $sign. It's a song worth listening to. And then he has a song about colonized mind, Baltimore, and then Welcome to America. And so I start the book by saying, I think you should listen to this song so that you understand what inspires Prince to sing these songs to the people of the United States. Of course, he was an international star, but there's something going on in the United States based on, the legacy of slavery that we still have to contend to. And here's how I'm going to help you get there.
Yeah. So now you've got me thinking that how people read a book like you're consuming a thing?
Yes.
You just kind of eat it up.
Right.
You're making me feel like you could almost use it like a companion or prayer book. Meaning, and I mean, did I get something?
You did, you got it. Like a devotional.
Like a devotional.
Yes.
Because of the structure and the way you have listened to this, it makes you throw out I'm going to gobble this up, gobble through this chapter,
right,
gobble through these practices, but more like, okay, I'm going to carry this around, or it's going to be at the bedside, or it's going to be the morning listen, or the midday, these 2 or 3 songs inside of this chapter. Is that, you were going for that, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's like, if you don't know who Prince is, watch this movie. For this topic, listen to these songs. Before you judge Graffiti Bridge as his worst, his worst, offering, watch the movie. Maybe 2 or 3 times, right? So yes, and one of my friends said, Ayo, it takes so much work to read this book. And I said, really? She said, yeah, because I'm not that familiar with his music. So now I'm listening to his music and I'm listening very carefully.
Yes.
Before I continue with the chapter.
That's exactly. I went back and because I made the assessment about Graffiti Bridge, the movie, way long time ago. I said, well, everybody has that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in light of the book and what the symbolism that you bring out, I looked at it entirely differently. So yes, it is devotional. So before Patrick is going to come in a while, because I know there are people who are going to have questions, but before he takes over to field those questions from the audience, can you name the top, like this is going to be hard, I know, but the top 5 songs, films, albums, however you want, that we need to engage right now as dearly beloved love and justice leaders trying to get through this moment
Oh, shoot.
in America?
That is not right, Lisa.
That is not fair, right?
Lisa, no, I cannot do that.
Well, just kind of, well, okay, let me just say, I know
Okay.
that you encouraged everyone at the beginning of your book to watch Sign of the Time.
Yes.
Yes, please, and thank you. That is exactly right, because I watched it 20 years ago and it resonates, it hits entirely different today. But maybe a little something, something, maybe
Okay, all right.
5 is a lot.
If you insist.
Okay.
If you insist. Well, I mean, it may sound so predictable and trite to say this, but Purple Rain. There's a reason why that song resonates as an anthem for people. So, got to be Purple Rain. Then I would recommend, not necessarily in this order, because you put me on the spot.
No, yeah.
Okay. Pop Life.
Yeah.
Because that is so emblematic of what's wrong with the United States. And what's wrong with materialism. Let's put it that way. And that is a global phenomenon. So I've got to write it down. Purple Rain.
I'm writing it down too.
Pop Life. Shoot.
What you
Annie Christian.
Oh, Annie Christian. Okay.
Yeah, Annie Christian, because that is about evil. And it speaks to the moment we are in right now as it relates to, we have a president who had the audacity to brand a Bible, and people are not outraged about that. I mean, I don't usually use the word blasphemous, but if anything is, it is that. And his okay, I could go on and I won't. Okay. Even though it's not my favorite album, I would say if you want to get an idea about where Prince ended theologically, I would say Rainbow Children. Even though a lot of people don't like that album, I think theologically it's brilliant, but it's not my theology, but that's okay. Doesn't have to be. Rainbow Children. And then you got to watch Graffiti Bridge.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And listen to the album.
Okay. What about
if you want to have a funky good time?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to have a funky good time, oh gosh, I can't do it. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I can't do it. It's too much. It's too much. Put together your own playlist. You got so much material to work with. That's the challenge. There's so much material.
There's so much. I mean, Patrick
said,
Dreamer.
I'm sorry, Dreamer.
The Dreamer.
I gotta add Dreamer.
I was gonna ask you if you thought the Dreamer. And I didn't know that song either.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Dreamer.
I think that's right. I mean, like Patrick said, 100 years worth
Mm,
of still unheard material.
mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Io. I could keep talking to you about this. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous book. And what a tribute. It's been nine years,
Right.
and many of us remember exactly where we were, exactly what we were doing when we heard that he'd passed.
Mm,
And that this would come out almost to the day of his birthday, of
mm.
his passing day. Um, it's just extraordinary. Thank you so much. I'm gonna
Thank
turn it
you.
over to Patrick, um, because I'm sure others have questions.
Yeah, what a gift of this conversation so far. And I'm gonna ask Lisa
Mhm.
stay spotlight and stay here. We're gonna curate questions, so just send them in the chat to me directly or to the whole group. Then we'll kind of read them out as a way because we've already received a couple. And I'm gonna take host privileges and ask one to connect your work because I am a student of yours, and that this is not your first or only book. And I am curious as I was reading through this manuscript in Ender's Net, thinking about the platinum rule and the connection between you kind of give us an arc in that work around coming to some sort of self awareness. I love the idea of bright eyes and wisdom teachings. And I'm curious about how much of that work you see in Prince's life, the story and the lyrics in the songbook, how much the platinum rule is coming through as you are investigating the life of someone who frankly left this plane early at 57
Hmm.
years old, as Lisa just said. So yeah, connect your work for us, so that way folks get a sense of, really you wrote one of the most important book in pluralism, in religious pluralism, and gave us the gift of the platinum rule. And I saw so much of that in Prince's life and teachings through his lyrics. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that'd be
Mm.
great.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Patrick. I'm interested in what you think. Um, and also I'll just say that for people who may not be aware of what I was trying to get at in casting interest net and the platinum rule is that sometimes you just know what a person would benefit from, even when they don't want that, even when they reject it. Um, we have been acculturated to be pleasing. I say this largely speaking. We get kudos for being pleasing. We get promotions for being pleasing. And there are times, many times throughout a person's life, where just pleasing somebody or being pleasing is actually detrimental.
Mhm.
And that throughout time, we become wiser, right, about what is beneficial for someone, beneficial for ourselves, and to then step into that moment of courage and take the risk and say, you know what, I'm going to offer you something that is actually good for you, even if you don't recognize it as such. And so this goes beyond the golden rule of treating others as you want to be treated, because we don't always know how we want to be treated. And the ways we want to be treated are often clouded by our desires, right? Which is not always the best thing for us. So I'm suggesting we take that extra step. And so then with Prince, I know near the end of his life, I feel confident, even though I didn't know him, that the work he was doing as a Jehovah's Witness was not something that everybody embraced, right? You know, people often find Jehovah's Witnesses to be irritating because they're coming to you with the good news and with a warning. And you're like, yeah, this is not really a good time for that. I was just doing everything but that, and I'm not available. So he did it, but he did it anyway. Um, he also intentionally got in trouble in order to make a point, right? Especially in the service of artists' freedom. Like, I will take the hit. Um, and so then and they punished him for that. And he fought back by saying, well, you don't own me. You can, I mean, wow, you
Mhm.
don't own me. You can take my name. Go ahead. That's not owning me,
Yeah.
right? and I'm going to create this. People will know who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to do my work. And I actually think some of his least brilliant work he did to fulfill his contractual obligations. That's my theory. So he could get back to doing him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the connection I'm making. And Patrick, I was thinking, why am I writing about music so much? You know, Casting Interest Net, I make many references to songs, um, Prince, and then I wrote this ebook, Songbird Bird Song, which is about two women who are singers, right? And it's because it brings me joy.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
It brings me joy. And so now I'm calling this work, and as a practical theologian, I'm calling this practical pastoral theolyricology. How do we apply the lyrics of songs for the healing work that we do? The music's there. Why not use it? Right? Why not really use it for healing? And that's the work I've been doing.
I love that. And what a dissertation title for anyone who's looking for one. What a gift. the so one last to tie these things together, and
Yeah.
Lisa, on this, I think you could speak to this as well. We've been recovering at Auburn Walter Wink's work, and Walter Wink talks a lot about angels and demons and this sort of the spirit realm. And one of the things you did really like I just loved in Casting Ender's Net is to talk affirming the emotional experience. That's part of the way that we live in the world. And I feel like when I was reading through this manuscript, I'm seeing a similar affirmation of the spiritual, of that other plane that we typically don't talk about in leadership circles and justice circles, that there might be something that we're trying to get to. If you could tell us a little bit about, as you were investigating Prince and navigating writing a book, I imagine you were also listening to the music as you were reading, that you might have, I'm going to project a little bit, you might have had moments of the mystical as you're writing this,
Mm.
where you are navigating how to put this down as you're writing this devotional. What is that experience like? Because you know that
Oh,
was part of his
yeah.
intent, was for you would have that experience, and then you're trying to bring us into that experience as well. And I felt it reading your manuscript. Here
Mm.
it is, spirit level on spirit level on spirit level. So talk about that writing process.
Oh, Patrick, that's hard. It's hard to articulate what that experience was. I'll do my best and just say that I've written a lot. And this is the one book that I didn't want to write. Like I said earlier, people would say, "Oh, you did this and you did that. Okay. Oh, you need to write that book." And I would say, "No, no, I'm not writing that book," because we did the Theology of Prince project in 2017 and 2018, and we have a Theology of Prince journal that you can still get online. That work is done. And then I go about my business and, "Oh, no, no, you've got to write that book." No, there are many books out there. I did my work. You can find it online. And then I got an invitation. So years later, then I got an invitation from Collegeville Institute, which is a writer's retreat in Minnesota, to spend 9 days there to do whatever I wanted to do. And I didn't have a writing project. So I said, "Well, can I just come and just relax?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, just come and relax, do whatever you want to do." And then I thought, I'm going to Minnesota. Oh, shoot. I can't seem to shake this Minnesota thing. That's Prince's home. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all my Prince books and I'm going to take all my albums and my CDs, because that's where the art is. I can download the music and I'm going to listen to Prince from morning to night for 9 days. And if there is anything that I feel that Prince is channeling to me, that I haven't already written about, that I don't think will be written about from a pastoral perspective, that could add some value possibly in these times, then I will write a book proposal. And so this book is the result of that. So I guess you could say the one thing that I felt I was receiving is that, and this was verified by various people, they don't understand my music. They still don't understand my music. They still think it's just dance music. And I said, okay, this is what I have to offer. That's the best way I can explain it. I don't ever want to portray myself as having channeled Prince. That's like, but I do think that there's mystery there. He was mysterious. He had to be, and now he doesn't have to be.
Wow. And what a commercial. We get, Collegeville just got a new executive director. So Isaiah Young, if you are listening, now you know how to set these writing retreats up, that there needs to be a soundtrack to lead into writing. I just absolutely love that. Lisa, I am curious about how you hear this question as well as a writer, as someone who's wrestling with this, and as someone who's read and sat with Ayo's work. How does this question sit on you about the writing process? And then I have a question from the audience.
Well, first of all, your last words about mystery and people still don't understand my work and his work was a mystery, now it doesn't have to be. First of all, I thought that that is the way that you honor an ancestor, is that you help create the space for them to rest in peace. And so that's beautifully rendered to me. Um, I mean, it makes me emotional to think that we pick up the mantle of the stories of those who have gone before our ancestors, partly because they deserve to not always be, to be at rest.
Mm-hmm.
And that theme of being at rest comes up in the book too, about the need to be at rest and the sacredness of rest inside of our work for love and justice. And so that just hit me so powerfully when now he doesn't have to be, because we are picking up and saying, we heard you, we hear you,
Mm-hmm.
so there's,
Yeah.
and I feel that inside as someone who as a writer who writes particularly about Black women and healing and wellness, and what does it mean for us to be in love with and to be beloved in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was struck by your capacity to not just simply, put Prince out there as now he has been discovered, because that wasn't it. It is more that pastoral piece of now,
Mm-hmm.
he loved us. We love him. We are loving our people forward. We are loving into these next generations. And so we can rest in that, even as we continue to fight, and he can rest. That's what I took from what you said. It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Now I got to
And
go back to the other book, your other book.
well, I recall there was an interview where Prince was talking about the fact that people didn't like the Graffiti Bridge movie.
Mhm,
And basically he said, well, people don't get it now. They don't get it now.
mhm, mhm.
Um, and maybe it's our job uh, for those we love who've
Mhm.
gone on to help people get it.
Yes.
Maybe we can take that on. Each one of us take on someone. I'm reminded of Alice Walker's book, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens,
Mhm.
where she talks about the importance of excavating,
Yes.
especially excavating the lives of Black women
Mhm.
who contributed something to this world but were ignored, right?
Mhm.
So Prince obviously was not ignored, but his expression confused people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
One of the talk about how people receive Prince. I think this is tied to the first question from the audience, which is when you're listening to this, and he's put so much out there, he's produced so much. The curiosity is around what surprised you as you were
Mhm.
like, that there is always another song, another album. Like you're not going to run out of material to, but
Right.
as you were reading his life and through his
Hmm.
lyrics and through his music, what surprised you?
Yeah. A few things. The first thing had to do with the Kama Sutra. That was the most surprising thing, I think, because it's like, oh, that was intentional. That wasn't him just saying, I'm going to be a sexy MF, right? And I'm going to, buck the system. Actually, there was an art to it, the art of being a lover. That's what the Kama Sutra is about, the art of lovemaking. And so I want to be a lover was I want to be the world's lover. Yeah. And this is how I'm going to seduce you. Um, it's like, oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Um, you know how sometimes you think you know somebody's music and you don't until you really listen to it over and over and over again. You listen to it in context. And it's like the context might first be the album, but then it's the album before, um, and then the album before that, and you begin to see a pattern. Paying attention to the different princes was surprising to me. How he grew in love and committed to incorporating love, not just erotic, but agape, familial love into his music. Uh, that was also surprising. And surprising because I just hadn't paid that close attention to it. And then, of course, all the songs, so many songs. Um, and I was just surprised that, oh, you know what? I didn't like that the first time I heard it. For example, Musicology came out in 2004. Eh, now I love it. Part of what he's doing in Musicality is honoring his previous songs. Like, look at you. Okay, I see you. Um, so those are some of the things that surprised me. And I think ultimately I could go on. The last thing would be I thought I would be so sick of listening to Prince by now. After the Theology of Prince project, and then writing this book and listening to his songs for 9 days straight. I just love it, love his music more and more.
I love that. And part of the curiosity or what it reading the text makes it seem that he was open to being surprised by himself, what comes next, chasing curiosity. Um, I'm going to nuance one of the questions that we have in the chat from Reverend Marquise. So apologies, I'm not going to read it word for word, but he talks about the question is really geared at Prince and needing to be seen or wanting to be seen or desiring to be seen. And Reverend Marquise likes it to a Luke text about Zacchaeus talking to tax collectors and prostitutes and sinners, and that the reason Jesus came was to bring salvation. He's having this conversation. He says this in this moment in the text that there's a reference about uh, his stature, his size, and needing to be seen. And he's
Mm,
wondering, so much has been written or thought about with Prince and his stature. I'm assuming the question, Reverend Marquise, has to do with his height. But I'm curious with someone who's so prolific and so on stage. I love the image, Lisa, you gave us of at the pulpit. That what was it? What as you're reading the Prince's work and seeing him perform, how much of that do you think was him trying to be seen? This is the
mm,
nuance of your question, Reverend Marquise. How much was it his desire to be seen, and how much was something in his music, some message he was trying to get, trying to emerge so people heard something bigger than him?
mhm. Yeah, I can't say that because I didn't know his innermost thoughts. I can't say that a desire to be seen can be picked up in his music, in his body of work. It doesn't come off that egotistical or that insecure to me. On the other hand, like I said, when he performed for the Rolling Stone when he opened for the Rolling Stones, and he was booed and hissed and things were thrown at him, I can imagine he said, I will never let this happen again. I must present myself in a way. If music is going to be my thing, then I have got to find the way to make it my thing. And so what is the expression? What's going to work? I saw in an interview with Arsenio Hall, Arsenio said something about, man, you're just so brilliant. Did you ever think about doing anything other than being a musician? And Prince replied that at some point in his life, when he was trying to figure out things, he opened up a phone book and found all of these various occupations, and nothing resonated with him. And so he said, well, since there's nothing else I want to do, I have got to make this music thing work. So.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to use that in all of my future one-on-ones with our president, Emma Jordan Simpson. I got to make this work because I don't want to do anything else. I love this question. So we're going to turn to our last question, then we're going to kind of wrap up this time. It's a question we've asked everyone on here. And Lisa, I'm going to ask you, I'm using this the last virtual lecture, so you're going to have to answer it as well. That one of the questions that we have is, as Auburn is trying to develop healing-centered leaders, folks who put healing and love at the center of their work. And we have a question we've asked every person who's come on this to do a lecture, do this conversation, is a question about healing and how it happens. And I think in this conversation, I would love both your own personal reflections as an expert in this, as someone who's written quite a bit about this, but also what you think, what you imagine listening to the lyrics, what wisdom we might find to this question through Prince. And the question is very simple. How much of healing do you think happens individually? I'm wanting it, my desire for it, my hopes, my work for it. And how much of healing happens in community?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Mm,
My initial response is that no healing takes place in isolation.
right.
That isolation is part of the illness. And there's no making it
Mm-hmm.
other than what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Also, for some people, too much community is also ill. It's illness. It's too much when a person can't express themselves, when they're shamed into a sort of lifestyle performing
Mm-hmm.
to be pleasing. That's not good either. It seems like we live our lives trying to find that balance between having enough alone time, enough time to nurture ourselves, um, respect ourselves, become beloved towards ourselves, so that we can also be that in community and receive that in community. And not everyone gets that. If the community is not committed to that path, then we're not going to get it in community. So then we go back and say, no, but I can't live alone for the rest of my life in isolation. I need to be in relationship. So can I ask for what I want? Can I ask for what I need? I'm going to take a risk. On that note, I would say one of the things I love about the practice of nonviolent communication is we ask for what we need without the expectation that we're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing that we can be vulnerable and asking for what we need, and we can abide with the disappointment. This was a prepare for disappointment. And then we can also ask ourselves, can I provide for my own self? If the love that I'm looking for in community is not there, can I love myself enough to then pursue being in a different kind of community? Or do I keep, asking for this community to change? At a certain point, you make that decision. But no good healing happens in complete isolation. I don't believe that.
Mhm.
And I think that's why Prince had people over to Paisley Park, right?
Mhm.
He had people over to Paisley Park. He didn't have to have people over Paisley Park. This is why Minnesotans love Prince, because he loved Minnesotans. He loved Minnesota.
Mhm.
And it was a back and forth and continues to be a love fest. Someone
Yeah.
told me the other day that they're going to pay $1,300 to go to Paisley Park for an event. And we know that Prince won't be there.
Mhm.
Yeah, the love and the passion is still there.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Lisa, what do you think?
Well, I think that how much healing is individual and how much is community. I mean, of course, I immediately think of the words I am because we are, right? And I and then I think back to when we were running the Work with Black Women at Auburn, Sojourner Truth Leadership Circle. And that healing work, it was each woman learning how, woman folk writ large, learning how to practice the art of beloving herself. And that could only happen inside of a community of other siblings who were practicing that with her together. The idea of each of us holding each other accountable to being beloved to ourselves was integral. It's like we recognized, yes, you are a particular one. When we talk about, God's loving us, God loves particular ones. And so there is none other like you. And so when God has fallen in love with you, that is a you, that is a unique you. But that you is not expressed or known apart from the all of creation. And so you create these communities, or you have these community spaces where we do the hard work of believing that and living that together. So then we are holding each other accountable to your individual healing. That we are not just the sum total of our trauma. We are actually not that. We are the opposite of that. We are beloved. And so, how do we practice individually and collectively bringing each other along in that? That's where
Mm,
I fall on that.
I love that. And if I might add, going back to Patrick's question about platinum rule, if we have that commitment, then that also means we hold each other accountable for being that belovedness.
Hmm.
We hold each other accountable, even if we don't want to be called out on something. There are
Yes.
ways to do it. It's like, hey, you know, come on,
Yeah.
come on now.
Come on now. Come on now. Yes.
Yeah, come on
Come on
now.
now. Yes. And you know what? Prince is like that to me. Prince has
Mm,
that. Come on now.
mm.
Come on now.
Got to do the work. Be
Yes.
willing to do the work.
Hmm.
I love that. I love the answer so much. And I want to say thank you, Pamela and Lisa, for this conversation, letting all of us witness and be present to the gift of your wisdom and your words and the love of preparation. Thank you, not just for this book and all your writing, but thank you for the invitation to prepare for a dean's lecture in ways that I haven't ever, which was to play Prince's music. And for those who are on this call that know Carmelita, I have a dance party with her every night, and to know that I've been traveling a lot recently, that we were preparing by dancing to Prince and that she danced
Oh,
on her own without me, but that was part of the community. So, like, calling us in. So, I just want to thank you for the gift from my own family of loving and dancing as it was work preparation
right. Oh, thank
for
you.
this
Can I
conversation.
make a request?
Yeah, of course.
I'd like to see who's here. I'm not
Oh
able
yeah,
to. Is
absolutely.
that
We'll do
yeah?
that in 1 second after we
Okay.
close the recording out. We'll
Okay.
have a moment to do that. But we just want to say
Okay.
thank you
Excellent.
because it's part of the lecture. We have one big announcement before we close out this time and bring everyone on. That we have one final in-person event for those who are in New York City. that we'll have Julian Brave Noisecat, the director of Sugarcane, the film about healing after Indigenous boarding schools, first Indigenous director, Oscar nominated this last year. He'll be with us in New York City at the Center for Fiction on June 4th. So for those who would like to come and be in person to have an experience where we see our belovedness into existence, at least for a few hours, then we invite folks to that on June 4th, and we'll send out reminders and post things online. But thank you, Io, for this gift. Thank you, Lisa, for this. Thank you for those who showed up. What we're going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll do gallery view so we can have a little bit of conversation and let people take themselves off mute, and we'll hold the Zoom call. But thank you for the gift of this
Thank you so
conversation.
much. Thank you.